What is philosophy? Now, you may think it's the catchphrases on people's t-shirts that they live by, and you may think it's a debate about what is truth, and everyone has a different opinion on it, and they all try and add to the conversation. And those definitions aren't exactly wrong, but they're not the definitions that I'm going to be going off of today, and that I'm going to be going in my videos. Hello, my name is Al Reinhardt, and I am the member of the Eclectic Seven you're going to be seeing on Sundays. Now, the definition of philosophy I'm going to use is the rational pursuit of truths conceived as answers to perennial questions. And the philosophy I'm most concerned about, the Western philosophy that follows in the tradition of both Socrates and the dialectic, first and foremost is rational. People have to set forth an argument and they have to have reasoning behind that argument. We have a debate about what their argument is and how valid it is and how much the evidence supports it. But we have to presuppose that arguments are going to be rational when we're speaking philosophically here. Now, pursuit of truths. What that means is we're going to continually be searching for truth. Truth is not something that will be found and then answered. But when it is found, when we do have a sense of a right or a correct answer to a question, it ceases to be philosophical. For example, atoms. We know that things are made of atoms now, but at a time, this was a philosophical question. Back in antiquity, people had major debates about what was the actual nature of things. There were people saying that earth, wind, air, and fire made up beings. There were people who were saying, no, it is atoms. Democritus was one of the people who said, it is atoms. One of the pre-Socratics who gets neglected when we speak about philosophy, as a lot of the pre-Socratic philosophers do, mind you. But as soon as we answered that question, it ceased to be philosophical, and philosophy stopped answering it. And we've done this a lot with natural philosophy, and that's why we have the hard sciences, why we have chemistry and biology and physics, because the answer to the biodiversity of life is not a philosophical question, it's a question of empirical evidence, following on a few key ground rules that have been made in scientific thought ever since Sir Francis Bacon came up with the scientific method, and we've been following in it ever since. This also happened in political philosophy. Karl Marx and Adam Smith, and also we can't neglect to here talk about Machiavelli, who wrote The Prince. I would have hated myself if I would have neglected Machiavelli, and you probably would too. I'm not going to hold that against you if I would have forgotten Machiavelli. Enough people have come to enough reasoning and can agree upon enough points that we've come to a discipline of political science, and we can actually see how electorates work and how people get elected to different positions and trying to go on empirical evidence, and that's why we have the discipline of political science. But we also still have some bits of political philosophy, which is the reason why not everyone follows in the same ideology, and why some people may favor, fair trade agreements, some people might not, because we don't all agree upon the same things, and thus we still have some philosophical debates going on there. But the three main disciplines where philosophy is most concentrated and where philosophy will always be king are metaphysics, ethics, and epistemology. Now, metaphysics, these are the things that are outside the physical nature. So these questions could fall into that nature. Is there a God? How do we know there is a God? What exists outside of reality? What happens after we die? These are the questions that most people think of when they think of philosophical questions. It's concerning about metaphysics, and the reason why it's called metaphysics is actually because Aristotle published his book on metaphysics after his book on physics. So even though we can talk about meta being outside of physics, it's really because of Aristotle's publishing order that we have the name for a philosophical discipline, which is pretty important, which I think is pretty interesting. And ethics, this is what is right, what is wrong, how should we structure society, how should we act, is there an objective right, an objective wrong, is there an objective moral code, how can we know what an objective moral code is? Do our morals come from God? Do our ethics come from God? Or do they not come from God? Do they come from our humanity? These are questions that are answered within the ethical realms of philosophy. And we finally have epistemology. How can we know anything? How do we know that we know something? And how do we know how we know something? That may be a little bit ridiculous there, but if I say there exists a purple elephant in a room, you don't automatically claim that there is a purple elephant in the room. That would be ridiculous. But how is it? How can you disprove something? These are questions that are answered by epistemology, and it's one of the disciplines that philosophy is mainly concerned with. So, that is just a very, very small introduction to philosophy. I hope that you will continue to be interested not only in my videos, but in the videos of all the members of the Eclectic Seven. And I am so very glad that you could have seen this video here today. And I am signing off. Again, my name is Al Reinhardt, and it has been a pleasure talking to you today.